If I could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in, I would have done it.
When they give us that inch, that bump stock ban, we will take a mile.
You've heard people say, you'll have to pry my gun from my cold dead hands. Okay.
We have introduced an assault weapons ban.
I'm talking about a ban on assault rifles.
If you listen real close, you can hear the people in power shaking.
It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Enough.
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 We say no more.
Even the presentation during the March for Life rally in Washington, D.C. subjected the participants with know thy enemy style exposition.
Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. If you try to take our firearms, doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them.
A great example of how the average liberal SJW is so stupid and uneducated on the matters of gun control.
Enough is enough! Enough! Not one of them can tell me what they're marching for. Do you think the Imperials would want to take the guns in Star Wars?
I'm not going to talk to you. I hate Infowars.
This is amazing. This is amazing.
Jones is a conspiracy theorist. He says that we want your guns, which we do, but you're still insane if you say we do.
I'm quoting from the legislation right here. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations shall seize and take possession of any assault weapon, large capacity magazine, armor-piercer bullet, or incendiary 50 caliber bullet. Shall seize and take possession of. That's not voluntary, that's mandatory.
Do you know what an assault weapon is?
Yeah, it's assault weapon. It's like I kind of do, but kind of don't.
The same amount of people die by assault weapons as do car crashes in a given year.
As what?
Do car crashes. It's a similar number.
Okay. It's not actually, but.
Or isn't it similar?
Have you ever fired an AR-15?
Yeah, do you know the difference between an AR-15 and an automatic?
Dead lives.
No, that's not the difference. You don't know. An AR-15 is a semi-automatic weapon. It's no different than a hunting rifle or a handgun.
Wars people out there, man. Take this, and also let it be known that hundreds and hundreds of thousands of young kids who are about to be in the voting booths are going to destroy your dreams.
We say no more.
If you want them, come and take them.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rob Dew, the voice, I guess, of Rob Dew right now. I'm here in the control room. We're getting things ready. Alex Jones is preparing all the evidence. He called me earlier today saying this is the moment. This is where they are making their move. So the Democrats are now openly calling for gun confiscations, gun seizures, and it's very important that right now you take this, because we're going to play a couple more promos while we're still getting ready, because we wanted to launch this at 6:30. Take the time right now. Spread this link to everybody you know. Text it to them. Send it out an email. Call people. Just share the links through Facebook, through Twitter, through YouTube. Get the word out. This is the time now that we need to start waking people up, because you never know. If YouTube starts their censorship, Facebook ratchets up their censorship, we may not even be able to get out on their platforms. We may be forced just to go on our own platforms in the future. So the time is now to spread the word, to let people know what's going on. We're going to play a couple more reports. This is another John Bound report. He's been doing a great job at really collating what's going on behind the scenes. If you watched The War Room today, he had an amazing interview with an individual who defended his family and his own life using what they call an assault rifle, which was a semi-automatic rifle. He was able to use that to defend himself from MS-13 gang members who broke into his house with baseball bats. They had a barbecue lid and they were beating him. He was able to defend himself, drive off 3 attackers with 1 gun. That is the power why we need to have these assault weapons. You can see there's a clip from it. right now. That was on the War Room earlier today. We'll probably end this broadcast with that powerful interview. So when people say, oh, why do you need an assault weapon? Well, first of all, they're not even assault weapons. They are semi-automatic rifles. And a lot of them don't even do as much damage as the average deer rifle. So people don't know what they're talking about. We're going to play clips of that, of people not knowing what they're talking about, like you just saw from that Darren McBreen compilation, and the girl saying, oh, more people die, or the same amount of people die from car wrecks as they do from assault rifles. Totally made up. Just made up. 50,000 people die a year on our roads, and we don't see a ban for cars. More people are killed with fists than are killed with guns, but we don't see a call for banning fists. So over and over again, they're using these talking points. They're telling their dumbed down supporters what to believe, what to think, and we have to spread the word about these. So spread the word about these. We're going to play another promo or another report from John Bound, and we'll be right back after this. Thank you for watching Infowars.com.
What separates mainstream media from blatant propaganda?
800 marches are planned for Saturday, from Bismarck to Salt Lake City, Memphis to Springfield, Virginia, and everywhere in between. Children now taking on a very adult topic, politics, and hoping they can teach the grown-ups a lesson.
The lopsided coverage of the March for Life was anything but objective. But don't take my word for it. Here's gun grabber-in-chief, Senator Dianne Feinstein from California, with more.
Let's bring in a prominent member of the United States Senate, Dianne Feinstein of California. She's in San Francisco right now. Dianne, thank you for joining us, Senator. What's it like out there today? It's wild here in Washington.
Well, it's the first day of spring. People are here. The program hasn't begun yet. I want people to know is that we have introduced an assault weapons ban. My office wrote it, but we have 30 co-sponsors. It's in the Judiciary Committee. We are asking for a hearing. Problem is, we need 60, and we don't have a single Republican. And you've got to get the military weapon off of the streets and out of the schools and out of circulation. I deeply believe that.
Even the presentation during the March for Life rally in Washington, D.C. subjected the participants with know thy enemy style expositions.
They use their schools to teach children that their president is another Hitler.
Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. If you try to take our firearms, doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them.
They use their movie stars and singers and comedy shows and award shows to repeat their narrative over and over again.
What matters is who the enemy is. They're the no-gun people, period.
Listen up. You might have met our fresh-faced flower child president and his weak-kneed Ivy League friends.
Hey, Obama, you might want to suck on one of these, you punk!
The only truly free people who have ever walked this earth have been armed people.
From my cold, dead hands.
You are either with us or against us at this point.
High school students are refusing to let thoughts and prayers be the end of the story.
Students are expected to walk out of their schools.
Hundreds of students coming outside here.
Point out that these are student-organized events.
If a change is going to be made, whatever that may be, then it can only be accomplished by a come-to-the-table discussion by both sides of the issue.
And as a parent, you protect children. You protect them until they're mature enough. You protect them until they're emotionally mature enough, physically mature enough, until they can make decisions for themselves. What you don't do, Grant, is exploit children to make the arguments that either you yourself can't make or that you want to make, but sounds inarticulate and inappropriate coming out out of the mouth of a 40 or 50-year-old anti-gun advocate. And that's the problem that we're looking at here. And that's why no one really in the media wants to talk about some of the people who are taking part in organizing the event. I just saw a press release that went out with Everytown and Mom's Demand. And I will have you know, Everytown is a huge fan of Stop and Frisk. And this is an organization, along with Mom's Demand, that have consistently rejected the idea of any kind of safety measures at all whatsoever, while simultaneously saying that law-abiding, gun-owning Americans like myself somehow don't have any solutions for safety, when yet I've approached them repeatedly to work with organizations, perhaps maybe like even Eddie Eagle or School Shield or Project Child Safe, and they've rejected every single overture. So I have to kind of question where their true intent lies.
The March for Life made it abundantly clear that their developing message has already been hijacked by the gun grabbers in Congress, the media, and the sycophants of the United Nations Arms Trade Treaty. John Bound reporting for Infowars.com.
Okay, everyone. Rob Dew back here, Infowars.com news director, and Alex is still getting ready, getting all the video bits that he wants to play. He called me in a panicked mode coming back up here to the office saying, we need to grab this, we need to grab this. We've been running around grabbing these clips since the war room ended at 6 p.m. Central. What you need to do now is send these links out, because Alex is going to be on fire when he gets in. But I want to cover just a couple articles that we're going to be going over on this broadcast. Seventh grader suspended for drawing stick figure with a gun. Thought criminal punished for 2-day suspension for doodles. So a 7th grade student in North Carolina was suspended for drawing a stick figure armed with a gun. And it was a local story that we picked up on. Don Salazar wrote this article. And what sounds like a satirical story from The Onion, Roseboro Salemburg Middle School suspended a 13-year-old boy 2 weeks ago for nothing more than harmless doodles. If you look at some of these pictures that he has on here, I mean, it's literally stuff I used to draw when I was a kid. Guys with swords, guys with shields, fortified buildings, tanks, stuff like that. It looks like he's got Ninja Turtle stick figures. And it is an Infowars story by Adon Salazar. There you can see the article and some of the drawings he was accused of using. So student suspended for drawing a stick figure with a gun. You can't make this stuff up. We also had the article from Jamie White on Infowars.com. CNN admits to using students as human shields. Criticizing anti-gun rhetoric from Parkland student activists means you're a bad guy. So we're not allowed to talk about these 4 individuals that CNN has anointed as the kings and queens of gun control. If you just go to Infowars, it's one of the main stories on there. Marcos, it's one of the top stories in Infowars. And it's an interview with Don Lemon, and he's interviewing with CNN commentator Tara Setamayor, and she starts criticizing. You're not allowed to criticize any of these people. That's what they don't want. So they set these people up because they're under 18. They go, oh, you can't say anything about these people at all. So I think it's in the scroller if you want. But there's the stick figure being. But we played a clip today. And Marcos, just go back to Infowars, and you could scroll down and find this one. Dim lawmaker, we don't want to confiscate guns. We want to seize them. Okay, this is a Georgia state lawmaker, Erica Thomas. Keep scrolling down. You'll see it right there to the right. Yeah, up one. There you go. We don't want to confiscate guns. We want to seize them. And I want to read from the bill that she sponsored. She was one of the supporters of this. This is H.R. 731. That was a bill in Georgia. Because this is what they're talking about. This is what their ultimate goal. Remember, the young girl from Parkland said, you give us an inch, we're going to take a mile. Oh, yeah, you'll put a ban on bump stocks, but we want more. They want all the guns. So here it is, starting lines 211. Any assault weapon, large capacity magazine, armor piercing bullet, or incendiary 50 caliber bullet possessed, sold, or transferred in violation of part of this is contraband and shall be seized and destroyed. And
that's right. Listen, guys, I was on the highway. Usually takes 20 minutes to get here. It took me 45 to get here. I apologize. I'm live. The crew stayed late. I'm going to get geared up, get my articles. But listen, if we don't act like this is a big deal, they're going to win. This is the main assault in the Second Amendment. It's backfiring, but everybody's getting confident because of that. The poll numbers going up for Republicans in the Second Amendment. They're planning something big. I can tell you, 23 years on air, the biggest assault ever is coming. My gut tells me, and intellectually, I can see it.
All right, so there's Alex. He is here. He's getting ready. He will be in 1 second. Let me finish reading this, too, because they use the word seize 3 times in this bill. Notwithstanding any provisions of the law, the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, which is like the state version of the FBI, shall seize and take possession of any assault weapon, large capacity magazine, armor-piercing bullet, or incendiary 50 caliber bullet as provided under Code Section 35-3-8. Any such assault weapon, large capacity magazine, and they could say 6 bullets is a large capacity magazine. They're not saying what it is. Armor-piercing bullet or incendiary 50 caliber bullet seized or taken by a Georgia Bureau of Investigation shall be destroyed, and a record of such destruction shall be maintained by such bureau. So that's the plan. It's seizing, it's outlawing, it's confiscating. That's what they have. So they may say, oh, it's just these little things, but they're going to keep ratcheting it up. Alex talked about the plan today, how first it's bump stocks, and then it moves up to something else, and then it goes to trigger guards, and then it goes to magazines that are over 10, that carry 10 rounds, and then it's down to 5 rounds, and then it's down to 3 rounds. They'll just keep taking and taking and taking. They don't know when to stop. So we've got it up right now on Infowars.com. Red alert, Dems announced plan to repeal Second Amendment, triggering potential civil war, because that is what they will be facing. And Marcos, are you ready to roll those next 2? We're going to go to a couple more promos here, and then we should be back with Alex Jones in the studio. So stay tuned. Spread this links. If you're on Facebook, spread the links on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, spread them on YouTube. If you're on Periscope, spread them on Periscope. Get the word out, people. This is the time to do it. This is the time to mobilize. Thank you for watching.
We've heard of looting around the greater Houston area, specifically Harris County. As far as Fort Bend County, we haven't. I made a comment the other day that we support the Second Amendment here in Fort Bend County, and there are many of us that are armed. I would caution those that want to come and prey on our people here in Fort Bend County that are suffering so much right now. You may want to stay out of Fort Bend County because you could leave this county in a bag.
It's also what happens when you listen to the radio host, Alex Jones.
Move, bitch! Get out the way! We pledge allegiance to one flag, and that flag is the American flag.
Infowars helped fuel the rumor that President Obama is an ISIS supporter.
It's been a cozy relationship from the beginning.
I will not let you down. You will be very, very impressed, I hope. And I think we'll be speaking a lot.
Donald Trump and Alex Jones.
This means that Donald Trump will be the 45th president of the United States.
Waging war on corruption. It's
Alex Jones.
Gun violence has been on a rampage, as we know firsthand and we know painfully.
A man who had been fired from his job about a year or so began shooting near the Empire State Building, but out on the street. He killed one person, and at least 9 other people were shot, and some may have been shot accidentally by police officers.
Because frankly, in my hometown of Chicago, there's an awful lot of violence, and they're not using AK-47s, they're using cheap handguns. And so what can we do to intervene?
When he turned the door handle, I shot toward him with my mom's gun, and it hit him right here in the arm.
After she shot Jones in the shoulder, he ran out of the bathroom and through this door.
A comprehensive strategy. Part of it is seeing if we can get automatic weapons that kill folks in amazing numbers.
The assassination attempt on President Ronald Reagan. An agent pulled an Uzi submachine gun out of a briefcase.
We joke sometimes about how
Malia's getting to the age now, and boys start calling, and
Yes.
sort of. I always talk about how one of the main incentives for running again was continuing Secret Service protections, so that there are men with guns around at all times.
We're 30 minutes from law enforcement. We had no way to protect ourselves, and there wasn't anybody around to take care of us. We were our first responders.
Right.
I came up with a plan, and the plan, has been on the news a lot. It's pretty self-explanatory. They have to have a CHL. We approve them.
I guarantee you, Barack Obama ain't taking my shotguns, so don't buy that malarkey. Don't buy that malarkey. They're gonna start peddling that to you. I got two. If he tries to fool with my Beretta, he's got a problem. I like that little over and under. I'm not bad with it.
The latest limousine, known as the Beast, thanks to 8-inch thick armor plating, Remington shotguns are close at hand.
I'm the guy that originally wrote the assault weapons ban that became law, and then we got defeated. Then Dianne Feinstein went to town on it and did a great job.
I know the urge to arm yourself because that's what I did. I was trained in firearms. I'd walk to the hospital when my husband was sick. I carried a concealed weapon. I made the determination that if somebody was going to try to take me out, I was going to take them with me.
California Senator Dianne Feinstein worked for more than a year to get the assault weapons bill passed in the face of ferocious opposition from the National Rifle Association. She says she got the best she could.
If I could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in, I would have done it.
One thing that I think is clear with young people and with adults as well is that we just have to be repetitive about this. It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
The Justice Department is basically guilty of allowing weapons to kill Americans and Mexicans. So will you agree to cooperate with that investigation both on the House and Senate side?
We'll certainly cooperate with all the investigations, but I'm going to take great exception to what you just said. The notion that somehow or other this Justice Department is responsible for those deaths that you mentioned, that assertion is offensive. And I want to tell you that.
But what if it's accurate, Mr. Attorney General?
If I could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in, I would have done it.
When they give us that inch, that bump stock ban, we will take a mile.
You've heard people say, you'll have to pry my gun from my cold dead hands. Okay.
We have introduced an assault weapons ban.
I'm talking about a ban on assault rifles.
If you listen real close, you can hear the people in power shaking.
It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Enough.
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 We say no more.
Even the presentation during the March for Life rally in Washington, D.C. subjected the participants with know thy enemy style exposition.
Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. If you try to take our firearms, doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them.
A great example of how the average liberal SJW is so stupid and uneducated on the matters of gun control.
Enough is enough. Enough. Not one of them can tell me what they're marching for. Do you think the Imperials would want to take the guns in Star Wars?
I'm not going to talk to you. I hate Infowar.
This is amazing. This is amazing.
Jones is a conspiracy theorist. He says that we want your guns, which we do, but you're still insane if you say we do.
I'm quoting from the legislation right here. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations shall seize and take possession of any assault weapon, large capacity magazine, armor-piercer bullet, or incendiary 50 caliber bullet. Shall seize and take possession of. That's not voluntary, that's mandatory.
Do you know what an assault weapon is?
Yeah, it's assault weapon. It's like a
I kind of do, but kind of don't.
The same amount of people die by assault weapons as do car crashes in a given year.
As what?
Do car crashes. It's a similar number.
Okay. It's not actually, but.
Or isn't it similar?
Have you ever fired an AR-15?
Yeah, do you know the difference between an AR-15 and an automatic?
Dead lives.
No, that's not the difference. You don't know. An AR-15 is a semi-automatic weapon. It's no different than a hunting rifle or a handgun.
There's people out there, man. Take this, and also let it be known that hundreds and hundreds of thousands of young kids who are about to be in the voting booths are going to destroy your dreams.
We say no more.
If you want them, come and take them.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
It's just a few minutes before 7 o'clock Central, 6:57. And the momentousness of the history that we're facing is so incredible that I'm sitting here pinching myself right now. We know the history of gun control. We know the history of disarmament. We know who's funding this AstroTurf anti-gun movement: George Soros, the Democratic Party, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan. That's on record. We know they've silenced the students from school shootings who are pro-gun or libertarian. We know they're openly calling for silencing anyone that criticizes this move to repeal the Second Amendment and arrest gun owners and Democrats at the speech, the March to Destroy America, and other events, saying they can't wait to take the guns from our cold, dead hands. It's so archetypal that in every case in history, free peoples are disarmed. It's a fact. And you've only got Switzerland, the U.S., and a few other countries that have gun rights. And then you've got all these other countries with much higher crime rates that don't have gun rights. But here's the big takeaway from all this. The Democratic Party, George Soros, the globalist, are now finally being honest about the fact that they want to repeal the Second Amendment, that they want to confiscate our firearms, and they also want to get rid of our free speech. That's all over the news. And because they've done that in the short term, the Republican and Trump's approval ratings have gone up in Gallup and other polls more than 10 points. And remember, they already oversampled those polls, 15 points for Democrats or more. But I'm asking, what are they planning? Why are they so confident? Because notice how they've changed the subject from why did Coward County stand down like every other big mass shooting is in a blue area, a blue city, a blue county, a blue state, and the police stand down. And then they collectively blame gun owners. Now, I know we've talked a lot about this, but just historically, culturally, if your neighbor kills their wife with a pickaxe or kills their husband with Drano or kills their child with a hatchet or a car, no one then blames the baseball bat or the butcher knife or the car or the swimming pool. More than 10,000 children a year drowned. We're talking less than 50 die in mass shootings. That's common sense. Since when if a jihadi takes an Opel truck, like's happened a bunch of times in Europe, and runs over a couple hundred people in Nice, France, you don't hear the news going, my God, we need restrictions on trucks. We need low-capacity magazine trucks. You say, my God, why'd the jihadi run over 200 plus people, including toddlers in Nice, France? No one goes. If you go get a prescription when your leg's broken for opiates, you're supposed to take 3 of them a day and you eat the whole bottle and you die. We don't say the doctor's to blame or that drug's to blame. Just like some people can smoke marijuana who are a type of personalities, the studies show, and helps them have a better life, much better than Prozac and double-blind studies. A little bit of marijuana at night helps them. Some people are going to smoke marijuana all day long and not get a job and stay in their mom's basement and play video games all day, and they're losers. But you don't then say everybody that smokes marijuana is indicative of this person that smokes it 18 hours out of the day. Just like I can go eat a double cheeseburger, and maybe I'm a little bit overweight, but not like I used to be. Should I, like Mayor Bloomberg, once restrict and pay a tax for a cheeseburger because somebody else abuses a cheeseburger or a sugary soda? Because that's what the liberals want. They want to socially track and tax and control not just alcohol, not just marijuana, not just opiates, not just guns, but fat and salt and entertainment. And they're trying to ban the NFL today being able to tackle people. I was listening to ESPN on the radio, just monitoring and driving in, and they're saying lowering your head in a tackle is now illegal. They're paid $10 million a year because they are gladiators, because they signed up for it, and it's their right to do it. So this is such a fundamental assault on free will that if 3 or 4 times a year, always some loner from foster care who's on Prozac-type drugs, who's told everybody they were going to shoot people, and who the police knew about, and who was in a no-buy list, it's always the same story. They go kill people, and then we wake up and mainstream media says it's collectively our faults because we own guns. That is the most authoritarian garbage. You know who punishes people for what other people do? It's not free countries. It's not free market countries. It's fascist and communist countries. In the old Soviet Union, if your neighbors fought back against the local commissar, the political police, you might get sent to forced labor because your neighbor did something. Your neighbor get killed. In Nazi Germany, when they invaded Poland and all these other countries, if you shot a German soldier, they'd kill 10 people randomly, just line them up, shoot them. But if you killed an SS person, they might kill 100. If you killed an SS officer, there were cases in Romania and Hungary and Serbia where they'd kill a town of 3,000 people. If you shot an SS general in the throat, the Blonde Beast was his name. They killed basically the whole town. So you're like, well, that's ridiculous. If one person with British intelligence shoots Heinrich in the throat when he's driving in an open car, why do you kill the whole town? Because it's a message. And that's what this is. This idea that some crazy mass murder suicide pillhead is on drugs. The police stand down, not busting him. They stand down the day of the shooting. The whole story repeats itself. And then collectively, the Democratic Party and George Soros and the rest of them fund hundreds of millions of dollars with the Women March funding that Soros funded to do these events and to say, you're shaking in your boots. You bet we're going to ban all the guns. You bet we're going to repeal the Second Amendment. You bet we're coming for you. You're a murderer. So, if I took this coffee cup or this pen, because I could kill somebody really easy with this pen. Okay, right in the carotid arteries, right in the throat. It's easier than you think. Is it precise V5 RT from Pilot's fault? Is it precise V5 RT from Pilot? Is it Pilot's fault? Or is it my fault for grabbing it and driving it into your throat? Just like they say, if I'm a gun owner, everyone else that does something wrong with a gun is my fault. Well, how many people own a Pilot pen or a ballpoint pen? I think everybody in America at one point or another has owned a ballpoint pen or a Pilot pen. And they train folks in the CIA and the Green Berets and everything else to improvise. And they teach you in a room where your instructor's there with a knife or a machete or a gun, and they say, take me out. And you're sitting there. There's a chair, there's a table, there's pens. The average person doesn't make the class because they don't instantly go, But this pen can kill people all day long. Now, if someone kills someone with a pen, again, I'm stating obvious things to you that already know this as viewers. But imagine the ignorance of these young people and the brainwashing in the public schools we've paid for. We pay for the Department of Education. We pay for these bureaucracies. And you look, even sociologists on MSNBC admitted less than 10% were actually under 18, and the rest were mainly government workers who want to just keep growing the budget forever, whose jobs are already secure except for themselves, and they want to say that gun owners are to blame for what someone else does with a tool. So it comes down to that. If you want to ban crime, if you want to say, because it's a perfect slogan, never again, never one more death from a gun. Well, what about the cops shooting criminals? What about bank robbers? What about gangbangers killing each other? What about the fact that over 70% of gun deaths in this country every year are self-inflicted when somebody's got cancer and they can't take care of themselves and they don't know what to do? I've had family commit suicide. It's not a good thing, but they're dying, they're in pain, their bills are big. It's kind of a thing they do. You know, you're all for Jack Kevorkian, you're all for gassing yourself, you're all for lethal injection, but almost all of it is self-inflicted. So again, here are the facts. For the first time in U.S. history since we were founded in 1776, an organized corporate governmental power, the media, the globalists, the Democratic Party, the weak-kneed Republican Party, they are openly pushing for the complete repeal of the Second Amendment and are saying, if you don't turn your guns in, we'll kill your ass. Can we cue up that sheriff's deputy? Can we cue up, one of the four horsemen of the gun grab saying, we'll get you, give us an inch, we'll take you a mile? New York Times op-ed, repeal the Second Amendment, former Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens. It's on, it's here. And the idea in common law doesn't exist that if your grandpa was a bank robber, you go to jail. Or if your neighbor robbed somebody or committed a crime, you get penalized. Not unless you knew they were doing it. And so that's the point we've reached, is a bunch of spoiled, rotten people selectively chosen from drama departments of public schools who want to go out and push a globalist agenda, who are handpicked to then be put out, and CNN and others say you can't criticize them. And now Soros, the Democrats, and others are so arrogant and so drunk on the blood of other countries they've successfully overthrown that they're in the news everywhere saying, we're going to confiscate your guns and we're going to take your free speech. We've seen CNN, all of them, say, take my free speech, and then misrepresent what I've said. Because that's what tyrants do. They misrepresent what you said. They misrepresent what you've done. They steal your identity. And then they misrepresent who you are once they've silenced you. Look at these headlines on Infowars.com with video. Dim lawmaker, we don't want to confiscate guns, we want to seize them. That's a quote. Remember when the UN used to say, we don't want world government, we want global governance. It's all semantical games. Here's another one. CNN admits to using students as human shields. CNN thinks you're evil for having a different point of view and says you cannot criticize the students. And Stelter even sits there and sets the precedent. He goes, well, I knew David Hogg was saying things that weren't true, but I didn't stop him because he's a victim. They're setting that precedent that we're going to have these PR spokespersons, and they're going to go out and say Alex Jones is a peach of SH, you know what, look it up at his Twitter, and Alex Jones is a criminal, and Alex Jones needs to be silenced, and Alex Jones is a coward, and Alex Jones needs to debate me. And then I knew it was a trap to debate me, and I said, Mr. Hogg, you're an adult. You're anti-Second Amendment. How about the First? Come on my show. And he said, I'll never debate you. And I was like, oh, that's funny. Meanwhile, 7th grader suspended for drawing stick figure with a gun. Don Salazar. So this is the reality of what's going on. And you have to understand that we can sit back and say, well, wait a minute. The NRA is getting record memberships. And wait a minute. Trump's approval rating's up 10 points. And I'm telling you, they've already looked at the tea leaves. They've looked at the breaks. They've looked at the angles. And they've got something big planned. They've never admitted that confiscating the guns is their end game, even though it's in their own documents, it's on their own admissions. They've got the same formulae, the same big banks have done it in other countries. They've never admitted to it openly. You can say, well, maybe Hogg slipped up. Maybe Tarr slipped up. Maybe these sheriffs slipped up. Maybe the CNN slipped up. Maybe the Supreme Court justice slipped up. No. Because Bill Maher is a key bellwether of Hollywood and the globalists, where they beta test things on HBO to their Time Warner captive audience. And 2 weeks ago, I was in Colorado, and I never watched cable, but I sat down after dinner. My girls were playing board games in the hotel room, and I turned on TV, and there was Bill Maher saying, the Second Amendment is not religion. It's not sacrosanct. We should repeal it. We should get rid of it. And I turned to my wife and I said, you watch, within a month, they're going to be all over the news saying repeal the Second Amendment, because Bill Maher is a test case. Bill Maher is a mouthpiece. And sure enough, I even shot a video that night that's on YouTube that has a couple 100,000 views, where I said, I just saw Bill Maher say they're going to repeal the Second Amendment, and that means get ready for the big assault. So let's talk statistics here. We can get a document cam shot. And I know you know these facts, but just remember this for yourself. You've got 337 million people in this country. 1, 10, 100,000, 10,000, 100,000. Point is that we've got 300 plus million people in this country. And you can pull up the World Almanac for yourself. It varies every year, but 10,000 people die in their shower. A couple, 20,000 or so die in lakes and pools. Hundreds of thousands die in cars. Hundreds of thousands from cancer. Hundreds of thousands from heart disease. Tens of thousands from electrocution. Tens of thousands getting hit in the head. The numbers vary every year, but it's generally the same. And then you think about how they take 16 dead young people with the sheriff's department standing down. This is a government-protected zone. This is a place with prison doors, with armed guards. But that's where the killers always go, and that's who the media hypes and promotes, is government reservations where they're in control, like Chicago, like New York, like D.C., like Baltimore, where they've got their gun ban, like Boston. And then the crime is hellish, and we know that's their model, and we know they're conscious, and we know whether it's Boston or D.C. or New York or Chicago, the permits are only given to the local thugs. They're only given to the establishment. They're only given to the buddies of the system. And so they know all this common sense. And we sit here and we hammer and we hammer and we hammer and we hammer and we hammer. And the power structure says, we don't care. We've got your children in public school. And then I've seen videos out of Texas, out of Missouri, which is shameful for Texas and Missouri, out of Florida, out of New York, out of California, out of Montana, out of all over. You'll think, well, Montana's super conservative. Yeah, but it's Democrats and liberals that run the public schools. And I've seen these videos. We played in the last couple of weeks where they announce, we're going to have a school walkout. Lunch will be paid for down here at a food truck. We're going to march down to the Capitol and call for an end to violence. Not an end to guns. They say end to violence. And for our parents to protect us. And then a couple students try to go out with pro-gun signs. And the principal comes and says, go to the office right now. And they suspend them in some cases. And then I was talking, my daughters go to private school, but they've got friends that are in public school. They play the same sports, tennis. And I took them down to Six Flags this weekend, 5 of their friends. They were all super well-spoken, very articulate. Their parents are listeners. And I was sitting there talking to them, to the girls driving back from San Antonio Sunday and to Austin. And they said, no, at our school, I'm not going to say which public school, it's a big one. They said a lot of people try to have pro-gun signs. They were even showing me pictures on their phones, but they get in trouble. So it wasn't just that I'm seeing this online. I'm sitting there with 5 young ladies that aren't my daughters. With my daughters. And they've got all the arguments, all the answers, you name it. And they say, it doesn't matter. We'll get suspended. And we got told we couldn't make those signs. And I all clicked right there, the answer to our solution, the crisis we face, the answer to the equation. I'm going to call their parents. I'm going to get them to come on air and tell their story. Because CNN wouldn't let the pro-gun students on from Parkland. That's on the news. They had fake town halls. But even these girls who are freshmen and sophomores and who are really smart, they as Texans, as libertarians, they don't feel like they have a right to speak out in America. And it's going to be up to their parents. And again, this is a case point. I'm not even being specific with this, like it all hangs on these girls from Texas, from Dripping Springs. I'm saying the fact that all of us are being bullied and attacked and told to shut up, and our young people are being attacked and told to shut up, and we need to be there green lighting them going public, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, because the world's ready to hear from them instead of letting out of 3,000 students, 4 people get on the news and say, how dare my parents, how dare gun owners support the Second Amendment, screw old people, we're going to take their guns. I mean, that's what Hogg's saying in videos that they then pull off YouTube and call bullying his own words because he's so embarrassing. These young ladies that were freshmen and sophomores were not scripted. I was in traffic down to San Antonio for 2 hours on Saturday, taking them to Six Flags, listening to them, and an hour and a half back, and they had all the arguments, all the facts. They were super smart, super articulate, and they would destroy David Hogg any day of the week. But libertarians, conservatives, Christians, free marketers, we keep our head down. We're not grandstanders. Well, in a modern information war, you better start speaking up because somebody else is speaking for you. And he works for George Soros. And he gets Democratic funding. And CNN calls for people to criticize him to be banned. And his name's David Hogg. And his father's a Democrat and an FBI agent. And he's so arrogant at this point, he thinks he can look you in the eyes and tell you you don't have a right to a Second Amendment. So here are the big questions today. I'm going to say this. I was going to open the broadcast with this. Let me just say this now. I don't say this from a position of power. I don't say this on a power trip. I say this from a position of responsibility. Because the globalists know this. The question is, do you? And by the way, the fact that we're in this position does not give me little goosebumps or butterflies in my tummy. I'm telling you this so you know how far down we are in the game, but also how far ahead we are. It's a paradox. I'm going to explain it in a moment. Everything magic is a paradox. Infowars. That means you, the supporters and the viewers that made this possible. And that's not patronization. That's fact. Focusing on me or the crew or any of that is a diversion from the will of the people and what we are. So this is so big, I don't want to just say this and then just have it be mixed in with all the other important news. So we're stating basic truths here. It's not like I invented any of this. I'm just here hard charging with the truth because I understand we're under attack. Infowars and what we do and what we cover and the spirit of what we stand for in this whole wide world, in all the millions of websites, billions of websites, thousands of cable channels and TV channels all over the world, there's thousands. Infowars is, out of all the balkanization, out of all the atomization, out of all the humanity, Infowars for news, other than the Drudge Report when it comes to links and things, and I'm glad Drudge is bigger than us. It's not a pissing contest. Believe me, I don't want this mantle. I'm trying to explain something here. It's so big, it's hard to even explain. Infowars is the biggest single thing when it comes to promoting free market and Americana and classic success and real capitalism. We are the Lone Ranger. We're it. We're the biggest thing there is. Now, that's the paradox. We're not that big. We're not that strong. We're small, but we're real. We're just real people behind the scenes here that really care and have families. We're just trying to tell the truth, trying to do the research, busting our asses because we love liberty and we don't want to be slaves. And so that's what I'm telling you right now is the paradox that we're the biggest, but we're little and pathetic. But here's the paradox right now. Get ready for this. We're the biggest. We're the biggest in the world. We're the most feared. We're what the tyrants fear. We're what keeps them up at night because they know we've got the answer. Just like Toto pulling back that curtain. You see, just like Toto, it's the archetypes are always real. Through history, they just repeat over and over again. We're individuals. We have souls. We have spirits, but we're waves. We repeat. It's the experience of those before us with us now, and then we break with them, and then we go to the future again. See the magic of that? We are what was, what is, and what will be. And so think about that metaphysical secret, and you will have the whole Zen understanding of it beyond some textbook. We are the dominant resistance force in the world, and we are little and pathetic and small. But it's the fact that even though we're little and small, the truth is so big, it stands up and makes the whole system quake in its steps. See that paradox? And I know I'm stating something that most of you get and go, of course. But for those that don't get it, they have to grasp that timelessness of this, that we are the dominant resistance force in the world. That's not rhetoric. That's real. We have to see the responsibility we have, all of you that are part of this, and see the truth. And then realize that we are the dominant resistance force to this global anti-human, anti-freedom cancer. And of course, like everything that's grassroots and real, we're little, we're weak, we're not big, we're not powerful compared to all the money and all the systems, but that's why we're so strong. And that shows how powerful we are, like a seed. And I have had to come to the realization, and that's why I realized subconsciously, because I'm somebody that really knows how to delve deep, I'm not bragging, it's true, into things, why I feel so horrible going on air every day, why I can't stand the amount of people listening and everything, because it's such a huge crowd, it's so many good people, they're counting on me, and it's all down to the wire now, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm sitting there supposed to deliver how the hell we get out of this, and I can't even keep track of all the evil stuff the globalists are involved in. And then I realized over the years how I never told people the listeners we have or how much money we bring in or even what we're doing. And I'm talking to these cable networks, and I'm talking to these people that syndicate Limbaugh, and they've all found out the real numbers and they can't believe it. It's not about me being the big swinging Johnson. so that people on talk radio kiss my ass when I go to some event. I don't give a damn about that. It's about you realizing how powerful you are and what you've done. And it's bigger than that. It's also realizing just as strong as we are because of our will and the fact that we're not out to screw people over, that the enemy's got a lot of crafty curves to them and a lot of tricks we don't know about. And that's why I'm so upset, because they're making their moves right now. And this is like the heat of battle. Like you're nauseous when you're in some knockdown, drag-out fight. Even if you're winning that fight with a mean son of a bitch, you're nauseous and you don't know what to do and you're shaking because you're knocking them upside the head and they're knocking you upside the head. The globalists, for the first time, admit they want to ban the Second Amendment and that they want to arrest gun owners and they want to break up our families and they want to forcibly, they're admitting it all. And you have to ask, is that out of desperation? Is that out of panic? Is that out of the fact they got something big planned? All I know is this is a huge opportunity, the fact that they're out in the open admitting they're planning to disarm us and enslave us. But don't be like them. Do not be arrogant. And do not think that we've got a leg up here, because my gut tells me this. They're getting ready to pull something big. And they know that they're losing control, and the will of humanity to do incredible things is unstoppable. And so if we just stop worrying about what they say and what they do and just tell the truth and move forward, it's over. But I think about how many prominent people I know before I recap this news and go to break and bring in Jake Lloyd and others who I saw in here working tonight. And I said, you should get on air. He's a Patriot, Army veteran, great producer. Marcos Morales, Rob, do anybody. I know they get back to their families, but they should come on air. Not just listen to me pontificate. It's just, we have to realize the point in history we're now in and understand that the Second Amendment and the right to arm yourself is something only a few other countries have because everybody else are slaves. And yes, sometimes it's messy that people have weapons, just like cars or any other thing that can be used as a weapon. And the fact that they're pushing for that is as a symbol. If they can get the guns, which are a physical symbol of manhood and motherhood and the right to defense, they believe every other domino will fall, and they are globalists that have conquered countless other countries and that have enslaved and exterminated countless people, and the globalists funded China and the communist takeover and hundreds of families destroyed every day, 85 million people killed under Mao. My God, I cannot do justice to how systematically evil and cold-blooded Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan and the Federal Reserve with all their bodyguards and all their crap are, and the fact that they existentially can't stand imagining that there's still men and women and families and weapons and success and gardens and everything that makes us independent. This is our gilding. This is us having a damn loop put in our nose like a bull when our testicles get chopped off, and they admit that's what it is. And the big prize for all of America's evils. America was a big, aggressive, successful, Wild West libertarian system that actually believed in people, and that's why it produced more wealth than any other nations combined. And it's under metaphysical assault. And if that metaphysical idol of free will and humanity falls, the idol they'll drag in is pure Satanism and a bunch of chicken neck, hunchback pieces of crap ruling over our lives and controlling us. And that's what this is the question of domestication versus freedom and all the wild, wild west that comes with that freedom. But I'll assure you, with the wild, wild west comes thousands of choices. And comes incredible opportunities, and comes a world of your heart full of blood, beaten strong, and the vistas before you, and unlimited potential versus the nightmare systems of command and control. And as for me and my family, as for mine, to quote Patrick Henry, I don't know what course you're going to take, but the war has already begun across the world to disarm the people. The war has already begun to bring in totalitarian Islam to enslave women and murder gays and all the rest of it. And the left is a reprobate, evil, corporate, paid-off group of followers that are absolute enemies of humanity, that if you don't stand against them, will have victory over you because that is their will. And never think for a moment that because you don't want to dominate somebody else, and because you don't want to run somebody else's life, and because you're not a chicken you-know-what, from the chicken you-know-what dimension, that there aren't people like that. You ignore my warnings at your peril. There is such a ghost of freedom. There is such a metaphysical overhang of the largesse of the Renaissance and everything that came out of it, that if we piss on that, we deserve what we get. And now we have the Daily Mail, the same people that troll around and pay folks to put out lies against us. Outrageous far-right websites compare Parkland shooter survivor David Hogg to Hitler after sick videos emerge of his March for Lives speech dubbed with Nazi leader's voice. He's there at a youth movement with guns, coming for our guns. They're there at a youth movement coming for our guns. They're there pushing all that iconography. And then they demonize Darren McBreen's report, breaking it all down. Well, the Nazis did wear armbands. David Hogg wears one. The Nazis were a youth movement. They did want the guns. And so if the shoe fits, wear it. He's a public figure. Meanwhile, Cambridge Analytica whistleblower, Facebook able to listen to you at work and home. Yeah, exactly. The fall of Facebook is now upon us, ladies and gentlemen. And then it gets into my show today and comparing David Hogg, a public figure who's a youth leader and does these arm salutes and all the rest of it with a major national youth movement who wears armbands. Far-right conspiracy Alex Jones played one of the videos during his Infowars broadcast. He described the video as truly frightening historically iconography that cannot deny the parallels of this youth march. Jones later clarified he didn't believe Hogg was a Nazi, but argued that gun control movement by students, activists, was similar to Nazi ideology. He had earlier called the rally a Hitler Youth invasion and called Hogg the chief propagandist in the left-wing fascist Hitler Youth Army. No, that was an article by Mike Adams, but I do agree that when George Soros, a Nazi collaborator, funds your movement and is trying to disarm the people and bring in fascistic control, that is exactly what it is. And they've tried to set the precedent. CNN said, I mentioned it earlier, that you cannot criticize any of these students. You have to basically turn your guns in because they're human shields for this movement. And so I'm not worried about YouTube trying to ban us. I'm not worried about them and CNN calling for that because I've got the lawyers, I've got the lawsuits ready, and I understand it's bigger than just us getting our message out. It's about standing up for everybody's First Amendment, and we're going to do that as they call for repealing the Second Amendment. And every authoritarian regime does disarm the people, and whether it was Maoist China or Hitler's Germany, they use youth movements to take control. So the Supreme Court justice says they're coming for your guns. They're all out there pushing it. They're all out there doing it. Maybe we should pull in the Hogg video that was put together by McBreen, where we simply show youth movements of previous, the salutes, hyping up the youth as a movement to go after the guns. Just like they've had Georgetown University sue me with false charges and all the rest of it. I look forward to a David Hogg lawsuit so I can actually depose him. He's the guy on tape saying he was at home the day of the shooting and rode 3 miles on his bike, that he said he was there during and all the rest of it. I'm not saying the shooting didn't happen. I'm saying that Hogg and others have some explaining to do about the scripting of their statements and what they've said and what they've done. And by the way, I don't say that because the YouTube might ban me. I never said no one died. I never said they were crisis actors. The media misrepresented what I said to take my speech, as they've done over and over again. So they're not just coming for your Second Amendment, they're coming for your First. All right, let's go to a few of these clips, and then we got some more of the crew coming here to break this down. The fight for your future is happening now. If you stand with Infowars, we're unstoppable. If you don't, we'll be like Remington, America's oldest gun company. Just went bankrupt yesterday because of lawsuits and people aren't buying bolt-action rifles. We have Brain Force Plus, 20% more in each bottle, 50% off right now. We have the Real Red Pill, 50% off, free shipping when you get both of them together. And when you purchase the products, you get great products that are amazing, that you owe it to yourself to have. And you stand in defiance against globalist tyrants and Nazi collaborators like George Soros, CNN, and the rest of these people trying to shut us down. So to all our TV and radio affiliates and all the exploding stations we're getting, my God, no wonder they're so scared of the globalists. No, we've gotten hundreds of affiliates the last few months. I salute you all and thank you all. Call your local TV stations, local radio stations. Tell them pick up our satellite feed. We're live 10 hours a day. Tell them pick up the radio show. You're having a massive effect. We salute you and thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, stay with us. More coming up on this live feed. Spread the live links on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, your email. Upload them to your own channel. You can override the algorithm. You can override the AI. You can override Zuckerberg and all the rest of them. Please stay with us.
First off, I would like to see the age for purchase of any firearm raised to 21. I think that we should ban the sale of all high-capacity magazines, handguns and long guns. I think that we need to ban the sale of any mechanism that will allow a firearm to fire in rapid succession. Any weapon that's designed for use by the military, I think we should ban. You've heard people say, you'll have to pry my gun from my cold dead hands. Okay.
There are so very many things, so many steps to take. Like right now, sign our petition. It takes 2 seconds, and it matters. We will take the big, and we will take the small, but we will keep fighting. When they give us that inch, that bump stock ban, we will take a mile. We are not here for breadcrumbs, we are here for real change.
The cold grasp of corruption shackles the District of Columbia. The winter is over. Change is here. The sun shines on a new day, and the day is ours. For the first-time voters show up 18% of the time at midterm elections. Not anymore. Now, who here is going to vote in the 2018 election? If you listen real close, you can hear the people in power shaking. They've gotten used to being protective of their position, chewing the safety of inaction. Inaction is no longer safe, and to that we say, no more. 96 people die every day from guns in our country, yet most representatives have no public stance on guns. And to that, we say, no more. We are going to make this the voting issue. We're going to take this to every election, to every state and every city. We're going to make sure the best people get in our elections to run, not as politicians, but as Americans. Because this is not cutting it. When people try to suppress your vote, and there are people who stand against you because you're too young, we say no more. When politicians say that your voice doesn't matter because the NRA owns them, we say no more. When politicians send their thoughts and prayers with no action, we say no more. And to those politicians supported by the NRA that allow the continued slaughter of our children and our future, I say get your resumes ready. Today is the beginning of spring, and tomorrow is the beginning of democracy. Now is the time to come together, not as Democrats, not as Republicans, but as Americans. Americans of the same flesh and blood that care about one thing and one thing only, and that's the future of this country and the children that are going to lead it.
I got to say something right now. They've got the Daily Mail and a bunch of other publications. I just looked during the break, bitching and complaining, saying, how dare Infowars play a video comparing gun control to Hitler and saying youth movements with the fascists, the Nazis, and then the communists. How dare us do that? He's a public figure with George Soros in front of 500,000 people. He's online saying F old people, F gun owners. We've got all the damn videos. He's calling me a piece of SH you-know-what-T. He's saying, I need to be shut down. And because he's a high school senior, CNN says in an article that they admit they're using students as human shields and says you should not criticize them because they're victims. God almighty. What of all the victims of gun control? Jake Lloyd's coming in here. I want to finish up with this, but man, my head is just spinning right now about how they're attacking the First Amendment as well. I mean, the left is just unbelievable. And David Hogg and the way he misrepresents what we say and what we do, I mean, it's so ridiculous. Now, there it is. Alex Jones must be shut down. And that's what they're promoting. Yeah, there they are in the article saying, shut me down, because David Hogg is calling for the repeal of the Second Amendment. And then we play a video and point this out. This is sickening and scary. This perpetuates the type of hate and conspiracy theories we've been seeing towards well-meaning kids, no less. Alex Jones must be shut down. So that's the new thing. Put high school seniors on TV, have them call for the end of Infowars of the First Amendment, have them call for the end of the Second, and if you say, man, that's pretty Hitlerian, to even pull up the Infowars article. It's actually a Natural News article we linked to. He wears an armband now. I mean, my God, they wear armbands. It's incredible. Meanwhile, dim lawmaker, we don't want to confiscate guns. We want to seize them. So there's the Daily Mail. There's all CNN. Shut us down. Not just the First Amendment, but the Second Amendment. So we cover a Natural News article, and that's how they respond. Finish up with a clip, and let's get Jake Lloyd in here. He's got a lot to say. Great job, crew, staying late. I'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Central. Even if they censor us off YouTube, you name it. We have our own 200-plus radio stations, over 100 TV stations, and millions every day tuning in at Infowars.com. So you know what to get out. McBreen told me he linked to that Hitler video on his own Facebook, and they banned it. So, my God, this is a protected individual to call for the end of our right that the country's founded on, and we try to even criticize it, and they try to shut us down. So now David Hogg doesn't support the First Amendment, at least. Him and his family and the whole system don't. We're going to win this fight, though. They're desperate, folks. We're going to win. Trump's approval rating's up 10 points. Even deserves it the way he's been waffling, but their move to take our guns is blowing up in their face. Why are they so confident? What are they planning? Let's go back to this, and then Jake Lloyd coming in.
Today is the beginning of spring, and tomorrow is the beginning of democracy. Now is the time to come together, not as Democrats, not as Republicans, but as Americans. Americans of the same flesh and blood that care about one thing and one thing only, and that's the future of this country and the children that are going to lead it. Now, they will try to separate us in demographics. They will try to separate us by religion, race, congressional district, and class. They will fail. We will come together. We will get rid of these public servants that only serve the gun lobby. And we will save lives. You are those heroes. Lastly, let's put the USA over the NRA. This is the start of the spring and the blossoming of our democracy. So let's take this to our local legislators, and let's take this to midterm elections, because without the persistent heat, without the persistence of voters and Americans everywhere getting out to every election, democracy will not flourish, but it can and it will. So I say to those politicians that say change will not come, I say we will not stop until every man, every woman, every child, and every American can live without fear of gun violence. And to that I say, no more. Thank you. I love you all. God bless all of you, and God bless America. We can and we will change the world.
What do you think would happen if law enforcement, pushed by Democratic politicians, tried to take the guns from law-abiding Americans? What do you think the effect would be?
Well, you know, I'm not talking about taking guns from law-abiding citizens. I'm talking about a ban on assault rifles. We are not trying to promote a militia. What war are we going at that we need assault rifles? Yes,
okay,
protect the citizens, protect your Second Amendment rights, but not assault rifles.
I mean, I don't want to argue with you, but here's the legislation that you supported in Georgia. The last assault weapons ban Democrats in your state pushed, and I'm quoting from the legislation right here. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations shall seize and take possession of any assault weapon, large capacity magazine, armor piercer bullet, or incendiary 50 caliber bullet. Shall seize and take possession of. That's not voluntary, that's mandatory. So you've got hundreds of thousands of people in your state who own weapons that you say are assault weapons. Are you worried that someone might get killed if law enforcement comes, you've done nothing wrong, and say, we're taking your gun away, whether you like it or not? What do you think would happen? I mean, it's worth thinking that through, since you're supporting a law that would call for it, don't you think?
You know, what I'm worried about is when the Constitution was made and when the Second Amendment was made, it stated that, of course, the Second Amendment. But let's talk about when it was made. That was when assault rifles, you had to take several minutes to reload an assault rifle. And now it's for several seconds. So let's review that law.
Technology is very
I'm not
different.
saying
No,
get rid
I
of
agree.
it, but let's review that law again.
Okay, but you keep dodging my question, and most people do, but I think it's important because we're getting to a point where actual legislation has been sponsored and will be again, saying that the government needs to take people's weapons by force. And if you really care about preventing deaths, I wonder if you're concerned even a little bit that there might be a violent reaction to that. Is that a crazy thing to suggest?
You know what? It's not a crazy thing, Tucker. You're totally correct. By force is not what we want to do.
That's what the law says. Hold on, that's the law that you supported.
I live in Georgia, and in Georgia we are a red state. I'm not about taking anything by force. I'm not about.
Then why did you support a law
force.
that says that the state shall seize and take possession of these guns?
What I support is saving lives. And what saving lives is ban on assault rifles. These kids are out here and they are stating that we need to put a ban on assault rifles.
Okay, I understand. I mean, I think we both agree. We're both against killing, of course.
If I could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in, I would have done it.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
All right, folks, we're back. It's another all-out assault on the Second Amendment. And they do this once every few years, usually right around the time that there's a school shooting or some other mass killing event. Now, it should be clarified that a mass killing is, I believe it's 4 or more people being killed at one time. And that's where numbers come from when they tell you at the beginning of this year, in February, I think it was, oh, there's been 18 mass shootings already this year, only 2 months in. Well, it only takes 4 people being killed, and I guarantee you that 17 out of 18 of those mass killings happened in Chicago and Detroit and inner city LA between the gang wars. Because one thing that I heard when I was at the anti-gun march this weekend was end the silence, no gun violence. Because apparently we've been silent on school shootings. Nobody's been talking about it, apparently. I've only heard it 24/7 since Parkland. I've only heard it 24/7 since Sandy Hook, we've been hearing about it for years. But for some reason, they want to say that we've been silent on it, as if this is a novel idea to talk about kids being killed. Because suddenly, someone had the revolutionary idea to speak out about kids being killed. The only silence that we've had on gun violence is people not wanting to talk about all of the deaths in the inner city with the gang violence, because then they'd have to address a culture problem that they created with the social movements that they've created, the destruction of the societal norms. They've created the pumping of drugs into black communities, all those different things. Eric Holder and Obama selling guns to cartels. You think that they're not doing that in the inner cities? I doubt it. So I hear there's a lot of silence on gun violence, but not at school shootings. And so for some reason, this go-around, where we're assaulting the Second Amendment again, is different. Why is that? Because we We heard all these calls to repeal the Second Amendment or to ban AR-15s, to ban, quote, assault weapons. We heard it after Sandy Hook. That was the biggest push in recent history. But it was different. It was different because what are the odds of getting another assault weapons ban? It was pretty hard to do at that time, but it wasn't very dangerous. Now, the political climate is a lot different. And why is that? It's because what they've been doing for the past 60 years is slowly eroding rights. The Constitution, in order to get rid of the Second Amendment, it would take 3/4 of Congress or 3/4 of the states in a constitutional convention. Well, what they planned to do throughout the past 60, 50 years is it's like boiling the frog to death slowly so it doesn't notice it is being killed. They slowly change societal perception of what the Constitution is. So it's no longer about just banning the Second Amendment. It's about regulation. So we're slowly going to regulate it. It's the same thing they did with the Fourth Amendment. They slowly take away your right to be secure in your person's papers, personal effects, etc. Because it's all about regulation in the name of safety. Well, now all of a sudden, because we have Donald Trump in office, somebody, and Trump, once again, is not perfect, signed this omnibus recently, but we have somebody in there that's actually willing to fight for the Constitution, to stand by his oath as president to protect the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now that's what they don't want you to think about that part of the oath, because the threats to the Constitution from foreign powers is not very grave at the moment, but threats to the Constitution from domestic powers is very it's imminent. But we finally have somebody in the office that's willing to stand by that oath, at least, even if they're not perfect. And so now they can't go on with their plan of slowly eroding the Constitution until we slip slide into absolute tyranny. No, now they have to force this all-out assault. It's a D-Day of sorts on your constitutional rights. That's why they're trying to depose a democratically elected president for no reason. They're trying to absolutely undermine Americans' trust in their own national institutions for no reason. They're trying to restart a Cold War with Russia. They're trying to take away your Second Amendment. They're trying to broaden these surveillance programs because they know that they have to be doing it all at once. They don't have the luxury anymore of slowly taking them from you. So now they have to open it up all at once, and it's all-out war, because that's the only way that they can make us weak enough. And we're not weakened by it, but it's harder. It's harder. So they're closer than ever before, because what they're doing, they've taken these students from this high school, the poor students. Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible for anybody to be involved in a school shooting. But they've taken them, and now they're these sacred cows that nobody's allowed to touch. They're doing the exact same thing that Osama bin Laden and other Al-Qaeda terrorists, ISIS, all those guys, they surround their compounds, their hideouts with women and children, so that if the U.S. Army went in to take these terrorists out, we'd be risking collateral damage of women and children. And that's the same mentality that makes the left go out and grab these students, because they go, oh, and they've done this. They've done it. They've done it to Infowars. They've done it to Alex Jones personally. Alex Jones just comments on what David Hogg is saying. He doesn't make any personal comments about Hogg. He just says, it's wrong. There's no reason to ban guns. You can't ban guns. It's not going to solve crime. All it's going to do is disarm people. You're saying the same thing that every totalitarian regime has ever said just before they killed millions of people. So we just comment on what they say, and all of a sudden we hate kids. We hate school shooting victims. We hate these. David Hogg. Look at this kid. This kid would love. This authoritarian little son of a bitch. Look at him. And then his little girl power fist at the end. It's hilarious. They need to meme him to the Bee Gees. But anyways, so they surround themselves with kids so that whenever you try to attack what they're saying, suddenly you're attacking kids. And it's worked. It's not worked on us. It's not slowed us down from what we're saying, but it has taken public perception off of what we say, because suddenly it's about us hating kids. And it's working because for some reason the public is not yet fully awake, but the public is listening to what the mainstream is continues to tell them. And for some reason, it's gaining traction now. It's hard to tell how much of it is genuine traction that they've gained on this gun control thing and how much of it is just astroturfed, bought and paid for marches and support, false social media support that we've seen from George Soros's Open Society Foundation and others that would like to see the American system destroyed in the name of globalism. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell how much of it. Now, obviously, there was a huge turnout over the weekend for these marches. There were hundreds in Fort Worth, Texas. So I went up to the DFW area for marches on Saturday. And it's really interesting because, Dallas, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, New York, LA, these bigger metropolitan cities, you would expect them to have a lot of liberal people, a lot of liberal-minded people, at least. People that lean towards wanting to confiscate guns. They're not rural. They haven't grown up with guns. They don't understand them. So you would expect that. But when you think of Fort Worth, Texas, you're not thinking of that. But nevertheless, there were hundreds of people at these marches. Now, only some of them were kids. Now, this was supposed to be a kids' march, a high school students' march against guns. For our lives. It's a little dramatic, if you ask me. I think you should be able to do things. If you have a real argument for something, I think you should be able to do it without appealing purely to emotion. But that's beside the point, I guess, because I would say at the march that I was at, I would say there was probably 20% students. It's probably 60% of them were teachers who were holding signs saying, "Arm us with scholarships, not guns." It's just my students deserve better. And the question is, better than what? Better than what? Better gun legislation? Better than being killed? Yeah, I agree. I agree that students deserve something better than being killed, but that's not what it's about, because these arguments are not, these people weren't reasoned into these arguments. Nobody presented to them a rock-solid argument that allowed them no choice but to convert to the anti-gun side. That's not how these people arrived at these opinions. They just see things on the mainstream media. They see them on CNN, MSNBC. They see these opinions. They see them telling you that if you don't support a bump stock ban and an AR-15 ban, then you're heartless and you hate kids and you want dead kids. And they buy into that. They go, "Oh my gosh, I love kids. I don't want more kids to die. I don't want more kids to die." So they've been persuaded into these arguments emotionally. And the arguments and the reasoning comes later. So it's this backwards logic where they find the reasoning to justify their emotions, because they can't face the fact that their emotions, while it is valid to be upset when children are killed in a school, they cannot accept that their emotional preconceptions are wrong on the cause of these school shootings. And I don't have to explain to you that it's not guns that kill people. Even they know that it's not guns that kill people. You can show them the FBI crime statistics. You can show them where the gun deaths are happening, and it doesn't matter. They don't care. They do not care. This is ideological. This is an ideological fight. The end justifies the means. They don't care that guns protect people. They don't care that more people, if you look at FBI crime statistics, now the ones that I'm familiar with, because I just pulled one out of a hat in the recent years in order to demonstrate something, but more people, or let's go through the numbers real quick. Okay, so firearms kill 8,000-ish people a year. Handguns kill 5,000. Rifles. You know how many people are killed by rifles? 248 a year. Now they want you to tell, I heard somebody in a video that Owen Schroyer shot over the weekend, somebody said hundreds of thousands of people die at the hands of riflemen every year. Well, it's not true. It's 200 to 300 at the most. Blunt objects kill 435 a year. That's more than rifles. I'm sure you can do that math. And then what really floored me was when I got to a different category on the FBI website, and it said personal objects or personal weapons, I believe. And I was like, what is that? So I clicked on the little asterisk, and it told me personal objects refers to fists and feet and other ways of physically hurting somebody with your body. 660 people are killed every year by being punched, kicked, or choked to death. That's almost 3 times more than with rifles. But for some reason, we don't hear. Do you think that CNN doesn't know that? Do you think that MSNBC, when they push this BS, do you think that they don't know that? Do you think that, now, they have zero integrity, but I don't think that they're stupid enough not to look up the facts, because they would want to look up the facts because they'd want to use them to argue against us. Because they know the facts. That's why they don't use them, because they know that they're not in their favor. These people aren't stupid. They're just evil. They want to take away your constitutional right to bear arms. Well, why do they do that? Because if you don't have any arms, then you have to do whatever the hell they say. One of the chants this weekend was, "We are the resistance." It was really, it's another video that I'm going to be putting up. I actually did a video. It's going to go up probably tomorrow morning. I have it all put together and everything, but it's dissecting their chants from this weekend. Because they had 4 or 5, they recycled the chants from every political event, and they just changed. So it used to be, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, Donald Trump has got to." Now it's, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, the NRA has got to go." So I'm going to be doing that, talking about it. But one of their chants was, it was terrible. It's embarrassing, humiliating. I would leave the political movement if I was on it just at the side or the sound of this. But some lady is singing. She goes, "We are the resistance, the mighty, mighty resistance. Everywhere we go, people want to." But that's not the point. The point is, we are the resistance. We're the resistance. Please take our guns. What kind of resistance wants you to take their guns? Because in order to actually resist, you have to do so with the threat of violence. We don't want violence, but if I'm resisting the federal government, what is my leverage for them to do what I say? The leverage is, I don't want to follow this law. It's immoral, unethical, unconstitutional, whatever the case may be. I don't want to follow this law. There's more of me than there are of you, and I have guns. Do what we say, or we're going to take your office, and we're going to do the job for you. That is the leverage that a populace has, which is why we have the Second Amendment, by the way, and they know that. Whenever you try to tell them that, and they try to argue about it or deflect or whatever, it's because they know that, and that's the point. But these people, some for whatever reason, are chanting, "We are the resistance," and in the same breath, they're asking the government to take their guns. What kind of asinine BS is that? So, like I said, the end justifies the means with these people. And like I was mentioning earlier, we have the Constitution. Yeah, you would think that maybe they can ban bump stocks. Maybe they can put some restrictions on assault weapons or semi-automatic weapons or high-capacity magazines, which to them 30 rounds is high capacity, which is insane. But at least we'll still have the Second Amendment, because they wouldn't be able to take it away that easily. At least we'd still have it, because, I mean, we survived an assault weapons ban before, from 94 to 2004. But that's not how this works, because you need 2/3 of Congress or 2/3 of the state legislatures in order to add, change, or take away amendments from the Constitution. But that doesn't matter, because we have the Patriot Act. Even though we're supposed to be secure in our persons, personal effects, and papers, but it doesn't matter, because the government indiscriminately gathers the data, your entire online footprint, the calls you make, everything. They gather that, and they have it stored somewhere, and government employees can look at it whenever they want, if they have the right access, whether or not they have a reason to. We have the suspension of habeas corpus. We have, the 10th Amendment is great because it says that all powers not given to the federal government are given to the states and the people, but we have the government overstepping bounds at every turn that they take. But we have the Constitution. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they have successfully, at least up until this point, successfully overturned the Constitution in a soft midnight coup. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to these people that we have a Second Amendment because they will, like the girl said in the video, just like she said in the video, if they give an inch, we'll take a mile. And that's what they always do. So if we let them take bump stocks and then AR-15s, in some places they've already taken the high-capacity 30-round magazines. In California, for example, where one of the California congressmen says a 30-magazine clip, it's a clip that holds 30 magazines. Genius. Yeah, what a genius. So those are the people that are legislating this. So do you think that these people, like Dianne Feinstein said just before I came on, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them in. If I had the power, I would have just had an all-out gun grab. That's what they say. They openly say this. On Tucker Carlson, the Georgia lawmaker came out and she said that she just wants in the bill that was proposed, it says a seizure of firearms. So you are crazy. You're high if you think that these people will stop at an assault weapons ban. If you give us an inch, we'll take a mile, they say, straight out of the horse's mouth. So what do we do? Because we have this all-out assault. Well, first let me because some people, because I talk to people, I know that some people don't buy into that. They don't understand that it doesn't matter that they don't have the constitutional authority to get rid of this stuff. But it's an all-out attack. It's an attack on the First Amendment. In the United Kingdom, you have a man going to jail for a joke with his pug to tick off his girlfriend, making his pug Sieg Heil. Do you think that's not coming to America? Do you think that in America, we're not going to have hate speech laws that are punishable by prison time? They have it. They're pretty close to having it just as bad in Canada. They have extrajudicial courts known as human rights tribunals where, yeah, maybe you didn't do something illegal, but if you did something that we find unpleasant enough, we can still take you to the human rights tribunal and have you tried in front of them with no jury, mind you, because it's a tribunal. They just kind of decide in their own little council what's going to happen to you. And if it's egregious enough, then you have to pay a fine. Enormous, exorbitant fines, by the way. So if you think that's not coming to America, you're crazy. Because 50 years ago, people would have said that democratic socialism could never come to America. All these problems that Europe's having could never come to America. Never would we allow people to illegally flood over our borders. Never would we take in refugees that are intentionally coming here as an act of war, blah, 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 blah. Never would America do anything that Europe does. But we are 15, 25 years behind Europe on everything. Never will America abandon Christianity in the way that Europe does or has. Look at it now. After the 1960s, church attendance, it's even worse now. But that's just an example. That's just another symptom, because the gun grabbing stuff is just a symptom that works in tandem with all this other stuff. And it's a vicious cycle because they all work off of each other. You have all of these societal issues. They seemingly disconnected, but they're all working together. If you think that the single motherhood epidemic in the black community doesn't play into the criminality, you are crazy. If you think it's not even just in the black community, if in white communities, Asian communities, Hispanic communities, single parenthood is the #1 predictor of criminality. Well, we have rampant single motherhood, single fatherhood in the United States. So why do you think we have so much criminality? We have all these different things. We have people hopped up on these SSRIs and other antidepressants, anti-anxiety pills, all this other nonsense that is destroying people's brains. We have people, I don't even know, you can't, because you probably can't get an honest study about this. I don't know how many people are addicted to porn which has been scientifically proven to destroy your brain, the way that your brain thinks about healthy relationships. So we have all these things. The point is we have all of these things that are tied together, but it's an invisible knot. You can't see it because they all seem disconnected, but it's all true. The gun-grabbing craze and the anti-First Amendment craze, they're all symptoms of the same problem, and that's because people do not have a fundamental understanding of how the Constitution works, because they don't understand what rights are. They don't understand. Why is free healthcare all of a sudden a right? Because if people were educated in the American idea of fundamental human rights, they would know that it comes from probably number one, John Locke, and then Thomas Paine elaborated on it, but John Locke's state of nature, in a state of nature with no government, you have the right to life, liberty, and property. Your rights cannot infringe on anybody else's life, liberty, property, vice versa, and you have the right to protect your life, liberty, and property. That is what our government, the idea of rights at least, is based on. The Creator endows humanity with those certain rights. The Bill of Rights is just an enumeration of them. It's just a framework for what that means. But we're not taught that. We're not taught that. Why aren't we taught that? Because we were infiltrated by communists, Marxists in the 50s, because we stopped caring. We stopped caring. And notice that that happened at the same time that all these other social norms were degraded. Do you think that they're not intertwined? So people don't have an understanding of what rights are. They don't understand that the right to bear arms is to protect not only yourself and your family, your life and your property, but to protect yourself against a tyrannical government. The ones that understand that are the ones that are trying to take it away, because they're the ones with the interest. They're the ones that have convinced people to want to disarm themselves. And they're not just disarming themselves by giving up their guns, they're disarming themselves by zipping their own mouths shut. Because, and they've done this with political correctness, and they've done this with all these other it's so weird, because we have these speech laws that we all abide by without there being a single piece of legislation passed. You're not allowed to say certain things. You're not allowed to say certain words or phrases that might freak people out. And it's interesting, you need to take a look at how far Trump has pushed the Overturn window back to sanity as far as speech goes. Can you imagine a politician saying the word anchor baby 3 years ago? But I digress. So we have disarmed ourselves in speech by giving up our ability to say whatever we want. Now, I don't think people should go around saying offensive things, but you have the right to do so. But there are things that we've policed ourselves from saying just because we're afraid of. It's the same thing that happened, they tried to do it with Obama. If you criticize Obama, you're racist. That one didn't really take over so much, but it's the same principle. So people police their own speech, and now they want to turn in their own guns. They want to turn in their own guns because they've been brainwashed by the mainstream media, working with the federal government. Because, the mainstream media, first of all, is completely co-opted by the federal government. If you look at the Washington Post, if you look at CNN, if you look at all of these major mainstream media institutions, they're all taken over. They're all filled with assets of the federal government, of the intelligence community. It's been the same way since the 40s and 50s, since the CIA was created. And that's how it goes. That's why the mainstream media has an interest in disarming you and convincing you that you need to disarm yourself. And just so that we're not confused about assault weapons bans, because that's what they want to do. They want an assault weapons ban, and then after that they want a total gun grab. Let's go over the numbers real quick. I've gone over the numbers a few different times. So, assault weapons ban started in 94, and it went till 2004. The deaths related to gun violence dropped from, I believe it was about 7 per 100,000 to 3.5. Now that happened from 94 until 2000, in the middle of the assault weapons ban. Now you would think that would have perhaps been an effect of the ban. Maybe gun violence dropped because of that. But in reality, it was dropping at that trajectory since a year before the assault weapons ban. And you could also predict that if the assault weapons ban had that effect, then after the ban was lifted, you would have seen a spike in gun-related violence. But that's not true because we've been at the same level of gun violence, or gun-related deaths at least, since 2000. It did not continue to drop from 2000 to 2004. And then after 2004, it did not spike. And I know that I don't need to explain that to you. And it's difficult because we can talk about this till we're blue in the face, but arguments don't work on them. But we have to continue pushing the arguments out there to people because there are some, as you can see with this past election, there are some people who, when they hear the truth, they can be brought over to the truth side. And that's why it's incredibly important to not only just expose the fact that the other side is lying, we need to expose the truth as well. Now, I think we have a break queued up here in a moment. We appreciate you tuning in and listening. There is an all-out assault on the First and Second Amendments. It's incredibly important that you support the fight against tyranny, against authoritarianism, against censorship, against forced disarmament. And how do you do that? Well, number one, you need to use all of their own platforms just the same as we do. You need to use Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all these other social media outlets to spread the word, fight back using their own weapons. That's one way, but you also need to support independent alternative news outlets like Infowars. And you can do that by supporting us at InfowarsStore.com. You tune in every day to The Alex Jones Show, to War Room, to Real News with David Knight. You tune into these shows and you get the real information and then you spread it. You spread it around. And to keep us going so that you can keep getting that information, keep spreading it around, you go to Infowars Store and you buy Secret 12 to fix your vitamin B12 deficiency, which you likely have because of the way that the government and the UN has affected our diets. We all have deficiencies in vitamins. So you get these vitamins, you get probiotics, you get prebiotics, Brain Force, excellent nootropic to increase your focus and increase your energy without jitters and crashes. 50% off multiple items, $50 off an Alexa Pure Breeze to filter the air, 50% off Cell Force, 33% off new Super Silver Iodine Infusion. All these incredible deals, and you get an incredible product, and you fund alternative independent media in order to fight back against the globalist, authoritarian, totalitarian assault on the First, Second Amendments. So please support us, InfowarsStore.com. Please continue to spread the word. We appreciate you turning in tonight. My name is Jake Lloyd. We'll be going to a break right now.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
If I could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in, I would have done it.
When they give us that inch, that bump stock ban, we will take a mile.
You've heard people say, you'll have to pry my gun from my cold dead hands. Okay.
We have introduced an assault weapons ban.
I'm talking about a ban on assault rifles.
If you listen real close, you can hear the people in power shaking.
It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Enough.
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 We say no more.
Even the presentation during the March for Life rally in Washington, D.C. subjected the participants with know thy enemy style exposition.
Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. If you try to take our firearms, doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them.
A great example of how the average liberal SJW is so stupid and uneducated on the matters of gun control.
Enough is enough. Enough. Not one of them can tell me what they're marching for. Do you think the Imperials would want to take the guns in Star Wars?
I'm going to talk to you. I hate Infowars.
This is amazing. This is amazing.
Jones is a conspiracy theorist. He says that we want your guns, which we do, but you're still insane if you say we do.
I'm quoting from the legislation right here. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations shall seize and take possession of any assault weapon, large capacity magazine, armor-piercer bullet, or incendiary 50 caliber bullet. Shall seize and take possession of. That's not voluntary, that's mandatory.
Do you know what an assault weapon is?
Yeah, it's assault weapon. It's like I kind of do, but kind of don't.
The same amount of people die by assault weapons as do car crashes in a given year.
As what?
Do car crashes. It's a similar number.
Okay. It's not actually, but.
Or isn't it similar?
Have you ever fired an AR-15?
Yeah, do you know the difference between an AR-15 and an automatic?
Dead lives.
No, that's not the difference. You don't know. An AR-15 is a semi-automatic weapon. It's no different than a hunting rifle or a handgun.
Wars people out there, man. Take this, and also let it be known that hundreds and hundreds of thousands of young kids who are about to be in the voting booths are going to destroy your dreams.
We say no more.
If you want them, come and take them.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
We need to fund this operation, ladies and gentlemen, and I make it really easy. We went out and looked at what the top nootropics or brain pills are that are healthy for energy, stamina, mental clarity, you name it. And we created a stronger formula than some of the best-selling formulas out there. It's very simple. We went out and looked, what is the top? What is the best? We'll just put even more product in. We'll make it better. Leading competitors put $2 of product in it, sell it for $60. We put $10 in it and sell it for $30. It's $19.95 right now. So you get an incredible top-of-the-line nootropic for $19.95. Believe me, we're selling it for $35 on average. We need that $15, $20 we make to fund this operation in the face of the globals, the rest of it. But I'm doing this because we got a ton of it coming in 2 weeks. I want to sell it all out before the big supply comes in. And I want people that haven't tried Brain Force to try it and find out why. It's got 6,000 plus 5-star reviews. It's amazing. Infowarstore.com, Infowarslife.com, or 888-253-3139. Infowars Life Brain Force Plus is our #1 selling product by leaps and bounds, and for a good reason. Going back about 5 years ago, we did research on what top-selling nootropics were, what were most popular, what were best, what people liked, and we made it even stronger. Then we cut the price because leading competitors have 5 to 7 times markup. We only have 150%, and then it helps fund our operation. Well, now it's 50% off. That means we've got a 25% markup, and we've got it paired with the Real Red Pill that takes about 7 days to kick in. Brain Force takes about 30 minutes. But the two go together. It's the Mind and Body Challenge. They're both 50% off individually, or together they're 50% off and free shipping with the combo at Infowarslife.com. But it's got to end in a couple days because both of these bestsellers are about to sell out. Infowarslife.com to get your Brain Force Plus and Real Red Pill today.